Good evening. This is Dawn Smith, the Development Officer for the Adams County Library System. Thank you for joining me today. This event is a fundraiser for the Adams County Library System, which consists of 6 libraries in central Pennsylvania. Your willingness to purchase a ticket to this event has helped the Adams County Library System with its purpose of connecting people to opportunities that enrich their lives. Thank you for helping us to raise funds for our most urgent needs. You're wonderful. Just in case you are not familiar with Zoom, I will highlight a few features that we're going to use tonight. Q&A, questions and answers. The Q&A feature is typically at the bottom or on the right of your screen. This is where you can type in your questions for Christina and Amanda. My colleague Sarah will be monitoring the questions you submit. The chat feature is typically also at the bottom or on the right of your screen. All attendees are muted, so engage with us via the chat and Q&A features. All attendees' video is turned off, so we can't see you, so that's why the chat feature is very, very important. Hey, let's practice. Type in where you are tuning in from. I'm in Gettysburg, Christina is joining us from Maine, and Amanda is in Colorado. Where are you tonight? Tell us where you are in the chat box. For those out of state, I invite you to come to Adams County, Pennsylvania. I'm in the library in Gettysburg, and the battlefield is beautiful and humbling. Gettysburg offers more than history, though. There are orchards that offer the best apples and peaches around. A new addition is the Adams County Pour Tour, P-O-U-R, Pour Tour, featuring wineries and breweries and a distillery. There's so much to do in Adams County, so come visit us soon. My colleagues, Tom and Sarah, are helping with tech today. Thanks, Tom and Sarah. And I have had help from a great committee. Thank you, Pat, Heidi, Karen, and Sharon. Without you, this event wouldn't be possible. Thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for joining me in this conversation with best-selling authors Christina Baker Kline and Amanda Eyre Ward. Hello, everyone. If you're just joining us, we'd love to know from where you're tuning in. I'm in Gettysburg, Christina's in Maine, and Amanda is in Colorado. Where are you tonight? tell us where you are by indicating it in the chat box. And if you're not familiar with Zoom, the chat box is typically located at the bottom of your screen or on the right hand of your screen. For those out of state, I do want to invite you to come to Adams County, Pennsylvania. I'm in the library in Gettysburg, and the battlefield is beautiful and humbling and definitely worth visiting. Gettysburg offers more than history though, so there are orchards and best apples and peaches around. A new addition is a tour featuring wineries and breweries and a distillery. There's so much to do. We'd love for you to come visit us. But thanks for being with us tonight here via Zoom. Good evening. I'm Dawn Smith, the Development Officer for the Adams County Library System. I'm so happy you're joining us tonight. This is a fundraiser for the Adams County Library's most urgent needs. Thank you, thank you, thank you for helping us to connect people to opportunities that enrich their lives. So tonight we want to engage with you since we have your video off and your audio off. Try the Q&A and chat features. As some of you already have, hello, Suzanne and Steve, my next door neighbors tuning in. Thank you very much from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. So in the chat room, tell us where you are joining tonight. The Q&A feature is typically at the bottom or on the right side of your screen. This is where you'll submit your questions for Christina and Amanda, and my colleague Sarah will be monitoring those questions. I do want to give a shout out to Sarah and Tom and to my fabulous event committee. Thank you so much, Pat, Heidi, Karen, and Sharon. You guys are amazing. I just love you. Thank you. And we'll be starting soon.
Okay, great. So maybe just look up oven roasted salmon.
So I just put olive oil on them both.
Great. Great.
Yeah. So and what, 400 at what time? Or do we wait until they show? 'Cause it doesn't
Well,
take
no,
that
we're
long.
going to their house.
Oh.
Sorry.
We're going to get started. We're going to get started. Hey, so we hear what you're having for dinner tonight.
I know. I somehow unmuted myself and I was like, have you, put the salmon in?
It's a good idea. Who doesn't love salmon on a Friday night? It's absolutely perfect.
Chicken, the oven roasted.
Oven roasted salmon.
Oh, very good. Yep, I love it. My husband grills a wicked salmon, so I'm grateful. I pretend I don't know how to grill, so he does it for me. He's amazing.
I know. No, we don't know how to grill. That's the one thing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So I think everyone knows, attendees out there, we're so grateful for you. And we do want to communicate with you through the chat and Q&A features tonight. So definitely send us your questions through the Q&A and any comments, especially where you're from, where you're tuning in tonight on chat. And we'd also love to hear your love notes to these beautiful, wonderful authors. Just such brilliant women. I'm so grateful to have the chance to talk to you guys tonight.
So I do have to say that Amanda and I wore basically the same shirt in our author photo. So both of us were determined not to wear black tonight so we wouldn't be twins, and now we're both wearing.
I think it's adorable. I think it's a sign of a successful writer. Well, thank you both. Okay, so speaking of which, first things first, how did you two meet?
Okay, I remember because I was your biggest fan. I am your biggest fan. I remain your biggest fan, Christina. And I wrote you a note and said, I'm such a huge fan of your work. I don't know how you do it. You're amazing. Probably P.S. Will you blurb my book? Is my guess.
Did I blurb your book?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, that's not what I remember because I've forgotten all of that. What I remember is that I went to the Texas Book Festival and you were like the queen of the festival and you ran everything and all I wanted was for you to do an event with me. That's what I remember. I remember people saying, like, oh my gosh, if you can get Amanda Eyre Ward, she's the most incredible in conversation person. And also she and her friend Clay run the whole book festival together.
That's right. That's right.
That's what I remember.
And well, I love both of those stories. They're equally possible, right? Like somehow they are one.
They're one. And, Amanda lives in Austin, although she might be moving to Colorado. We have to ask her about that tonight. But she lives in Austin and she's like the queen of Austin. Like everyone knows who she is and you walk down the street with her and you feel very famous.
At the book festival, not any other time of year.
Okay, well, certainly at the book festival because she's like the face of the book festival. So, you know, anywhere you go, you just have to bring Amanda with you because you'll like cut the line, get into the restaurants, all of that. It's very
I've been there a long time.
I think that's fabulous. Well, and how are the colors in Maine? So is it gorgeous there right now?
I was just about to write and then I was like, this is going to be too depressing for people, you know, south of Maine, but that it's like dark and cool, quite cool outside right now. But yeah, we're starting to get fall colors. I kind of feel that I don't know what happened to my year. Do you guys all feel that way? Yeah. I don't know what happened to my year. I feel like the summer went in a blur. I can't believe it's fall. I was here in March, which I was not expecting. I live in New York City, but we zipped up here on March 13th. And we could have a whole conversation about this, which I will not bore you all with, but basically it's going to be the year that just everything was crazy, right? For everyone. It was so crazy and continues to be crazy. It continues to be crazy. So, and the fact that we're even doing this by Zoom and not like going out for cocktails afterwards and having a whole, you know, wonderful thing is sad on the one hand, but on the other hand, I get Amanda to do this with me because we're here doing it virtual. Oh,
sorry, my tech support says
Oh,
that
that's
my
awesome.
photograph is glaring.
All of our husbands are lurking in the background, sort of.
Mine's lurking. Yeah, mine's lurking at
Quarantine
home.
life.
Yeah.
Quarantine life.
I already helped Amanda's mother turn on the audio on her computer in Savannah, so you know.
Awesome. I love that Amanda's mom's on the line. My dad and my hubby are on the line too, so that's a good thing. Speaking
my
of,
husband is over it. He's been, I mean, I have had so many since my book came out 3 weeks ago, and he's like, I said, oh, would you like the link for friends and family? He was like, must I?
like, I love you, honey, but no.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
There he is. Hello.
Very good. So
Quarantine days. We're never alone.
it takes a team. It takes a village. It totally does. Well, I wanted to, okay, Amanda, we're definitely looking forward to meeting you in person someday in Adams County. So Christina, you were in Gettysburg now. It's September 2018, which seems like 15 years ago. Tony DeLacy, who is our official, unofficial battlefield tour guide, and he's on this Zoom with us. Hey, Tony. So he gave you a tour, and I was wondering what you remember most about that battlefield tour.
Okay, first of all, Tony was incredible. If anyone on the Zoom is lucky enough to get a tour with him, he has an encyclopedic knowledge of Gettysburg. He is so entertaining. He you know, the people that I love to spend time with in life are the ones who are so filled with passion about what they do. And so, you know, the books I write are often books that capitalize on people's passions, in that I work with these historians who are way into their subject, and, you know, I get to spend time with them and interview them. And even though you would think they'd be sick of me after a couple of years, they're like, send me everything. I want to know. They want to fact check and, you know, whatever. So Tony, I'm sorry to tell you this, because I told Dawn, this is the perfect question to ask me, because she was saying that you might be on the call, but my next novel takes place in Civil War era North Carolina. And I happen to know that Civil War buffs are the worst. They're the most knowledgeable. I shouldn't say they're the worst. They're the most knowledgeable historians in the universe. And they care so deeply about their subject that it's extremely terrifying to contemplate writing a novel that takes place in the time of the Civil War in the South. But I have this family story that's so crazy that I have to tell it. So I will very much be approaching you, Dawn, and Tony as well, to talk about this at some point. But I had the most incredible tour. And part of the reason I was inspired to write this family story is getting Tony's opinion and his sort of take on the whole battlefield stuff.
Yeah, we are so privileged, and his wife is lovely too. Michelle's a rock star, so we're so privileged. That is so cool. So since you mentioned it, we have to.
By the way, my stepbrother works at a national park in Georgia that's a Civil War site, so we'll have to get in touch to get you VIP tour of that.
Definitely.
That's awesome. So basically, we're totally hooking you up, Christina. Just let us know.
This is the only reason I do these things, is to get, you know, all my ducks in a row for the next book.
Or swag.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to ask this later, but I have to ask now. So tell us, this next project is, Christina.
Okay, I'm not really supposed to talk about it. Don't.
Okay,
he always yells at me when I. Okay, so this is the story. I'm sorry. We'll start again. One sentence. My mother's great aunts. Okay. Great. Our two sisters, Sarah and Adelaide Yates, who lived in Civil War era North Carolina, as I mentioned, and they married two brothers who happened to be in the sideshow of a traveling circus. And their names were Chang and Ang Bunker. They were the original Siamese twins. And they lived in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and they had 21 children. One of them had 10 children, one had 11 children. And for a while, they all lived in the same household for like 4 years. And then they went to adjoining hillsides. And my novel is called The Foursome, and it's the story of the two sisters.
Oh my
Gosh, we're in. We are totally in.
That's amazing.
And no one can tell. No one can tell. So
Why not? No one else could ever write that book in the world.
Yes.
Christina, no one else could do it but you.
No one can write this book. That's why I
tell
had,
everybody, because I hear that and I think, well, I can't write that book. But you do it.
but you guys, these are my relatives.
That's
You
awesome.
understand how crazy this is?
This is
So
good.
I could not write this book. I wanted to write a contemporary novel because these research heavy books are so much work.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm just going to write a novel set in the present day. I did an event with Lily King a few weeks ago. And I said, we were talking about research because her last novel, Euphoria, required a ton of research. And her next novel, I have it here, Writers and Lovers, great book, was set in the 90s. And I said, but Lily, of course, a novel set in the 90s also requires research. She's like, not really. No, it doesn't. I lived through the 90s. I didn't do any research. And I was like, oh, right. It doesn't require research. That's what I need to do.
All over the world. The research was so hard.
It was so hard. So exactly. Oh my gosh, the jet setters. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so I didn't want to write a novel set in the past again, but I just can't say no to this story. It feels like it's made for me.
That's incredible. I cannot wait to read it. So I totally am going to put a different spin on this though, because as we talked about already, like with the pandemic, it feels like February was 14 years ago. So much is happening in our world, and you guys are adapting. The world is thinking and rethinking and changing on a global scale. And I was wondering what your biggest takeaway is from COVID-19 pandemic. And I was hoping, Amanda, you could start. I mean, are you still shopping in thrift stores?
That's wow. My biggest takeaway. So we're, as Christina alluded, we are kind of in transition right now. Normally we live in Austin, Texas. We come to a small town in Colorado called Eyre for the summers and for the holidays. And like Christina, we came here and just haven't left yet. And so I think because they opened the elementary school, so my 8-year-old has started at Eyre School in 3rd grade, which we just never foresaw. And I guess the takeaway that I'm trying to remind myself is that, first of all, to try to make it an adventure, rather than complaining about what's not happening, make it an adventure what is happening. And also just to try to slow down and be thankful for what's in front of you. I'm in these beautiful mountains. I also have fall weather for the first time in 20 years. I'm seeing beautiful trees change, and we have time to be together all the time. So, it's hard sometimes to get yourself in that space, but just this is a period of time. It'll change, hopefully, and hopefully on November 4th. And I'm trying to be thankful for what's in front of me.
Okay, but in the spirit of total honesty, I feel like we should tell people that you just had like the world's most glamorous experience.
True. I just got back from Los Angeles, yes. So I am, and the whole Reese's Book Club pick all happened at the beginning of the pandemic. So it's been a lot of good news for my job, which is nice. It's still really happy, even in a hard time.
Congratulations. Well deserved.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
So we don't get to learn much right now. You have to tell us later about that.
Yes, I'm not supposed to talk about it.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Well, okay, I got a makeover with fake eyelashes. I can tell you that. It was amazing.
I know that people wear them every day. I know there are people who wear them every day. I felt like I had like, I don't know what houses on my, I felt like they were so heavy. It was such an odd, I was seeing the fringe.
Amazing. And as if I was supposed to have makeup people around me all the time. Finally, I was even noticed.
My people, they recognize me for who I am, a celebrity.
Well,
I'm
and
used to room service and fake eyelashes, but I'm home now, so.
I love it. I think you should bring them back anytime. And also, Nora, hands out. Good job, Nora, for your makeup tonight. You're beautiful.
Yes. My daughter was here, Christina, earlier. She was fixing my hair and picking
I
out.
missed that. I missed that.
Very glamorous.
Yeah, that's great.
So totally bringing you, I want to compare some things because I think when I knew that I was able to talk to both of you, and then reading your books, and then there are similarities and then there are vast differences. And so I'm sure I'm not the only one. Regarding your most recent books, Amanda, for you, that's The Jet Setters, and Christina, the Exiles. Both of your stories feature ships, but in a vastly different way. And I was wondering if you would share your, what are the advantages of a writer to utilize that tool of a ship and a journey, as a plot line?
Do you want Amanda to go first, or should I?
Your choice.
Okay.
You go ahead, Christina.
Okay, I'll go ahead since you went last time. For me, the journey aspect is huge. And so putting people on a ship, first of all, you have these people who don't know each other, so you have strangers coming together. As a writer, that's always a fun thing to do. But you also have people going somewhere. In Amanda's case, it was a cruise, so it's a little bit different. She can talk about that. But in my case, the propellant of the novel is that my characters are literally moving forward. Whereas in my so like Orphan Train, these characters start one place, end up another place, have an adventure, end up another place, have an adventure, end up another place. But in the novel I just wrote before this, A Piece of the World, which is about the woman who was the subject of Andrew Wyeth's best-known painting, she was a recluse and she lived in the same house for her entire life. And she basically never left the house. So this was a totally big departure for me, and so much easier in some ways, in that I didn't have to manufacture every moment of drama. Whereas in that story, everything that happened was internal, not external. She didn't really do anything. So all the drama was her own emotion, etc. Whereas in this story, there's a lot of big stuff that happens. And that provides for a writer a whole different series of challenges, but also a series of things that are easier to kind of handle, because you're writing about something that's already in motion and you don't have to drum up any of the drama. The drama is inherent in the story. So in some ways that was sort of a delightful thing to do.
Yeah.
What about you, Amanda?
Well, I loved realizing when we were going to be on a panel together this time that both of our books are on ships or involve ships, and could not be more different, these ships, because while Christina's ship is taking people to a penal colony, mine is a super cheesy cruise ship in the Mediterranean. And I have explored so many different places in my novels. I love traveling, and I've written books set in South Africa and at the border and all over the world. And I really have been obsessed with cruise ships for a while. I don't know why. I had never been on one, and they just seemed so fun. It just seemed like endless, appalling fun, forced fun. But I have 3 kids, and I was sitting in Austin in my kitchen a few summers ago, and it was 110 degrees, and I was flipping through a travel magazine and saw a balcony on a cruise ship looking out at the Mediterranean, and a voice in my head said, "You do not belong in this kitchen in a bathrobe making breakfast. You belong on that cruise ship balcony." So I wanted to write about these characters, and I thought, if I put this dysfunctional family with secrets on a cruise ship and trap them together, everything is going to come out. But it was harder than I thought it would be. It's my first really character-driven novel, and that turned out to be very hard for me, as Christina knows, because I asked her for help for years along the way. Because I thought, oh, well, they go to these ports of call, and there's the story. But in fact, when the stories are based on character, and not plot twists and crimes and mysteries, you have to do a lot of slowing down. I found I had to do a lot of slowing down.
Yeah. I mean, this novel feels like an Amanda Eyre Award novel. If you read your other novels, you know, the propulsion and the there is a real plot to this story, but you do have that incredible heart in the novel, in this novel, where you've got, I mean, you do it, I feel like you do in all your novels, but I know what you're saying a little bit about character. Like, it does feel that you went into different people's stories in a way that was pretty profound in this book.
I think that it comes more naturally to you to slow down, Christina, when I read your work, where you're very comfortable telling us where the characters are coming from, you know, giving us glimpses into the present and past. And in the past, I've always gone full speed ahead. And I've had editors say, okay, hold on, Amanda, slow down here. What is she thinking? What is she feeling? And so I had to do a whole another year of work on this book. I handed it in. I thought it was done. My editor said she didn't like it. And I had to go back. And when, for example, one of the siblings just starts an argument, I had to explain why in their childhood a similar situation had made them feel a certain way, and maybe show that childhood scene and then get into the talk. And that was new for me. It felt very vulnerable and hard. And I am trying to do it again because I think that's what I like to read.
Well, it is hard, and there's the problem with it. I mean, I actually, believe it or not, I have the same exact problem. I always write short, for one thing. I mean, there's a little throat clearing. My editor said, I did an event with her last night, and we were talking about how whenever she gets one of my novels in, she's like, lops off the first 20 pages, or I have to build it back in later. I'm sort of like building the story. But I write short, and then I tend to fill in. And her comment that I hate is sort of, what does she say? Needs a beat here, she says. And that really means I have to rethink the whole thing.
I get that too.
Yeah. Or what you said, what is she thinking? What is she feeling? Or what is he, you know? And that slowing down is also hard for me because I have anxiety about entertaining the reader. I sort of feel like, I like, I'm sort of tap dancing and like, slow this down. We need to understand, as you said, the backstory and all of that. And so there are those concerns. I mean, I do think that naturally I'm more interested in character and language than plot, which means I actually have had to find systems for plot. So like, for example, my first novel, Sweetwater, nobody would know this, but the structure of it is based on the Oresteia by Aeschylus, these 3 Greek plays. I pretty much copied the plot of the
I didn't know that.
Yep. And only one reviewer caught that. Like, I did do that. And even the names are the same. Like, Orestes is Horace, and Agamemnon is, you know, they're all in there, but you wouldn't necessarily know it. And then for this novel, The Exiles, for the first time writing a novel, and this is my 8th novel, I guess, I used Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, which is a 12-step journey. But I unfolded it through 3 character stories. And
so all 3 of them did the 3?
So it's a passing of the baton from one person to the next. So you have part of the hero's journey, and then you have the next part, and then the next part. I didn't go back and forth between characters except for Mathena, who is woven into the stories. But I went forward in time through the convict women, and I really did plot it against this hero's journey. And it gave me this structure that was really helpful while I was working.
It worked. Both of you obviously have done your homework, and your characters are fascinating and fabulous and haunting and and fun. And I mean, Amanda, with the characters you put together on that ship, that family. So we're dealing with relationships and needs of senior citizens, alcoholism, coming out with homosexuality, crazy family dynamics, hurt, pain. And yet, it's a quick moving novel. I don't even know how to
It is.
Is that a question, How?
No, good job. It's okay, unless you have the answer. But I think
the funny part is that I wanted to write a novel about joy, about the possibility for joy for people who've been through a lot. I wanted to write the possibility of joy and romance, and I kept adding things. Like at one point they took on refugees on the boat in the Mediterranean. They had this Syrian family.
Oh,
My
wow.
editor said, okay, you just did a book about refugees. This is your cruise ship novel. This is your happy novel. And boy, did I try. But I think that real joy, the deep joy, often comes from escaping sadness and dysfunction. But for sure, yeah, this is as happy as I could get.
Wait, okay, Amanda, can we talk for 1 second? I feel like we're both, only interested in you here. I mean, I really want to know. So no, I don't mean that. I mean, I'm trying to get Amanda to talk more. Amanda, I want to know, this was your breakout novel, as they say. Would you say that's true?
Yes, I would say that's true.
I mean, I know you've had other novels that were made a splash, but this has made such a big splash.
Yes.
So what is that like for you?
It is so great. And I think one of the joys for me of middle age is being ready for it. I have no imposter syndrome. I feel as if I've been working really hard for a long time, and it's felt really amazing. It's felt wonderful.
That's such a good answer, because it does feel like, yeah, you earned it. You totally earned it. And
when they told the Random House sales staff that it was going to be a Reese's pick, apparently one of the guys said, "I've been selling Amanda for 20 years and it's finally her." So it felt really nice. I had a little dinner party with some of my best friends. Remember dinner parties? We were all in my house, and we made meals from all the different ports in the novel. And then I told them all that it was going to be Reese's pick, and they were all book people, so they knew how exciting that was. And it's been really, really fun.
Good for you. Well, in Hollywood, an overnight.
I knew when I saw you in New York. I'm sorry, John.
That's okay.
Michelle and I knew, but we weren't.
I know you did. I know you did. We talked about that. I mean, I saw Amanda we had such a whirlwind little time together that was so fun. And I know her agent, and anyway, it was just, I could tell there was something major that you couldn't tell me.
That's good. Well, okay, so we're going to compare two of your other books that are wonderfully similar in some ways, but not at all. So many of us have read The Orphan Train and also The Same Sky. So Christina, thank you for sharing the story of Vivian, an Irish immigrant, put on a train in Minnesota as a last attempt to find a family and a home, and her unexpected relationship with Molly, a 17-year-old foster care gal, and then Amanda for bringing attention to the many children in Honduras and Mexico that are making the treacherous journey to America to find a parent who moved there to make money and send back home. The Same Sky is beautifully haunting is what I'm sharing. So you've got these two incredible stories, but again, here you are. I can see why you guys are friends. Kind of a completely different, but yet the same. Could you share just some insights or just how you feel about each other's works with that subject of an orphan, for example?
Well, I just want to say that now that I think about it, Amanda, I think, yes. Okay, so I've forgotten this whole part of it. I got her novel, The Same Sky, after Orphan Train, right? What year was that published? 2015, 14, 15?
Something like that, yeah.
So Orphan Train had come out, and they sent it to me, obviously, because there are resonances. It has some similarities. And I was in such a white hot moment. I wasn't blurbing anything. I was traveling all the time. And I think there was a heartfelt letter by your editor. And also I picked it up and realized this is really compelling. And I have been such a champion for that book. I mean, I really loved that book. I was so happy to blurb it. And yeah, so when I came to Austin, obviously I knew you from that, but there are, if you like, I always tell everyone, I mean, if you liked Orphan Train, you should read The Same Sky. And also because it's so contemporary. I still think about it so often because it's about
story.
It is the same story,
Really?
except it's the present day.
Right.
And it's about immigrant children at the border, which is just so apropos of our national conversation.
And it's kids alone on a train.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a really, really compelling story. And so, yeah, we really did have this parallel kind of interest.
Well, I mean, in many ways, I was inspired by the Orphan Train. I think, I can't remember if I read it before I started my book or in the middle of writing my book, but you really showed how you could take a child from a different world than the one we were currently living in and make her just as poignant and beautiful and make her someone you cared about. And then by tying it in with the present day story, which I might have just copied to do for mine, I had a mom in Austin who's the one that the reader will probably relate to more easily.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can tie these stories together. And I think you showed me that that was possible, really. And Orphan Train is such an incredible book. I love that book so much. But I also love the Exiles. I love them all. I don't know which is the most.
It's okay.
But
you don't have to pick.
sometimes, you know, I love so much about fiction writing, but when I feel most proud, it's when I'm able to take a story and make somebody think about the world just a tiny bit differently than they did before the book. And that happened with me for Orphan Train. And I was trying to do that with The Same Sky. Because when you read about these, you know, masses of kids at the border, incarcerating thousands of kids, I just, you know, Christina showed me, if you can tell the story of one child, it can really change how you see history.
Yeah. You know, I'm asked often, like, what my sort of, or people tell me what my themes are, or they sort of, you know, have ideas about it. And I think what I've come to realize is that I'm really interested in the stories that haven't been told. And when I was writing The Exiles, I came across this article in The New Yorker by Jill Lepore, who's a wonderful writer and has a new book out now, actually. But her article was called Just the Facts, Ma'am. And in it, she says that novels, and she was talking about novels set in the past, novels do what history doesn't, but should, which is that they tell the story of ordinary men, she said. And then she went on to say, and who are these ordinary men? Well, a lot of them are women. And I thought that's exactly what I've been doing in these books, is to sort of focus on people, as I said, whose stories haven't been told. You know, history is written by the conquerors. It's not told traditionally by women who haven't had the power. It's not told by immigrants. It's not told by the poor. It's not told by the dispossessed. You know, and so what are the stories that we read about the history of our country and the history of the world? They're usually stories that are written by people who've come through. And for example, when I was writing this book, for example, I was thinking how these stories of convict women and the Aboriginal people have been so hidden. Mm-hmm. And now we're sort of seeing Britain as this colonizer. Everywhere Britain goes, all over the world, they don't have the power anymore, but they used to have the power, and they would just basically divide and conquer. They would come in and take over and squash the native population. And it happened in our country, of course, and it certainly happened in India, but it certainly happened in Australia.
I remember you telling me at my dining room table, we were in our pajamas, and you said, my new book is about this island and this group of women, and it's a story nobody knows.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you found it.
Absolutely. What a privilege for us that you are both working to talk about the underserved and underprivileged. We just appreciate it. So you both teach. You teach writing classes, and I do know that we have some aspiring writers on the line. Could you tell us a few tips of the trade or anything? What would you share with our aspiring authors?
First, I'm going to close the door because my husband's emptying the dishwasher.
Okay.
I'll start with mine. And Christina's been putting some online, so that's been really fun to read hers. So I teach a class where my students, and we're starting tomorrow morning, we have 6 meetings over the course of a year, and they write their book. And the most important thing to come out of the class has nothing to do with me. It's these people who have wanted to write a book their entire lives, and they're saying, this is the year I'm going to do it. And I'm going to say to them, you have to write 50 pages by the next class, which is probably about 6 weeks from now. And it enables people to say, you know what, no, I can't empty the dishwasher because I have to write my pages today. You know, I am going to make a beautiful place for myself to write. I'm not going to beat myself up, you know, for having to let the kids play on the iPad or whatever. I think for me, giving yourself the gift of time, because it takes time, and a beautiful place, and feeling proud of yourself if you write a paragraph, can make the difference between becoming a writer who finishes a project and one who doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, time is, and we've seen it during COVID, I think. I've been so aware of this lately, that time is so amorphous and it can just slip away. You know, there are so many things to do. Suddenly it's 2 hours later. It is about that, Amanda. It's about carving out, it's about believing that you have the right. And in your case, as a teacher, what you're giving these students is not only that they have the right, but they have a responsibility to write those pages, and that they're prioritizing that over everything else. Right. And that's what it takes to write a novel, for sure. That's what it takes to be a writer, especially because for many, many years, unless you have some fluky career, no one's going to be telling you you should be doing that and rewarding you for it. So you have to dredge up your own reward. What is the reward for working by yourself in a room when, I'm sure when people, you know, it's like being a musician or being any kind of artist where you're actually saying, I am making time for this, whether or not other people think there's a payoff or that it's going to be ever worthwhile. You're taking such a leap. It's the hardest thing ever. And it doesn't come naturally for most people. And in a time like this, also, when we're, in some way or another, we're glued to the news, we get alerts on our phones. Yeah, I said we get alerts on our phone, and I got an alert on my phone. I mean, there are endless alerts. But how do you unplug? How do you create a quiet space for yourself? And sometimes it can feel not only like you don't deserve to do it, but like the dopamine rush of having all of those alerts kind of accustoms us to doing it. I was talking to one of my sisters today who have young kids who are in school. And my sister, who has an early teen, was saying it's crazy with COVID because everyone's on Zoom. And then they're all texting each other at the same time, or they have a, you know, because now our laptops and phones are all intermingled. So they have a text stream going, or a Facebook, whatever it is, that however they communicate. And it's a completely different experience than being in a classroom and having a teacher when your phones are put away. So how do you even control that? And there's that question as a writer, how do I keep my stream of, you know, and I would say another aspect of COVID is that we're in our own bubbles and we're cut off from people on the outside. So in a way, our phones and our laptops and our iPads are lifelines to other people. Mm-hmm. So all of those things contribute to make it really hard to produce, I think, creatively.
I also just wanted to add, I think surrounding yourself with writers and readers is the most important thing. I mean, I was telling Dawn that I text Christina all the time for advice about life or my writing or my career. And I'm friends with a lot of writers, and it just helps you maintain this belief that it's important to do this, and keeps it going. And so that's another piece of advice that I give to early writers. Find some other writers, you know, go to readings, email writers. I mean, that is how I got to know Christina. I think I wrote you and said, I love your work, and that now we're friends. It works.
And also, I would say for other people to, if they go to readings, or at this point, if they join Readers Coffee House on Facebook, there are all these different Facebook groups of readers and writers. You can find like-minded people and, you know, make small groups. You don't have to have anything in common other than that you want to create, because that community is really important, really important. I love being friends with writers. I mean, someone said to me at the very beginning of my career, I think it was an agent that I was, talking to about possibly representing me. And she said something about like not being friends. You shouldn't be friends with writers because there's too much jealousy and people get in huge feuds and whatever. And I've never had that. That was one of the reasons I was like,
I
might
have one
be the right person.
I don't
What's
know.
that?
I have one feud.
You have one feud. I've had a feud. There are feuds, but there are feuds in real life too. And, okay, fine. You learned that isn't a person for you. But I would say ultimately the benefits outweigh the negatives of being friends with people like who are freakish like you, who you want to sit in a room and create things. I mean, otherwise you're just such an outlier. You need to be friends with people who are like you in some ways.
Well, and collaboration makes the world go round. It just does. That's practical advice. Thank you for the practical advice. And then, of course, COVID keeps on drifting in and out of our conversation. And so I'm going to combine those two for you, Amanda. You co-wrote The Sober Lush with Jardine LeBaire. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. I love how witty you both are, by the way. And it's a really, really important book. And I'm not sure how many people in our audience today know, I don't know what they know about it. So I wanted to summarize from the book detail, The Sober Lush real quickly, and then ask you a question. The Sober Lush provides a roadmap for living a lush and sensual life without booze, including ideas and instruction for such non-alcoholic joys as the allure of the vanish, in which one disappears early from a party without saying goodbye to a soul, to amble home under the stars. Additionally, the art of creating zero-proof cocktails for all seasons, having a fantastic first date while completely sober, and a primer on setting up your own backyard beehive and honey tastings. As you know, kind of I grew up in the Midwest, and it's kind of like the slogan was "Get high on life." That's what I kind of remember. So I don't think this is new news. Unfortunately, a lot of people started drinking more mid-March. They were home. There were lots of jokes. I mean, it happened. Of course, not realizing how long COVID-19 was going to stay with us. And affect their lives. And I was just wondering what you can tell us about living a lush life without booze.
That is such a great question. Thank you for asking. I think that what makes life easy for me, I've been sober now for over 4 years, and I really had to learn to listen to the little voice in my head. I told you before that it said, you belong on a cruise. I listened. And a lot of times it'll say, I do not want to be cooking dinner right now. And so I'd pour a glass of wine to keep cooking dinner. And now I say, to heck with this, we're ordering pizza. Or I have a whole chapter called the Arsenic Hour that is based on a drink that my Southern relatives in Savannah, my mom is watching this, and so she knows about, they made a very strong cocktail called the Arsenic Hour. And it's that hour, if you have kids or not, at the end of the day when there's a bunch of stuff you're supposed to do and none of it's what you want to do. So their idea is mix yourself an Arsenic Hour and get on with it. But my idea is go lie in the hammock and give the kids cereal. So really, this philosophy has changed my entire life. As you said, the vanish. The other night we were at a social gathering here in Colorado, and people were bringing out whiskey, and it was kind of getting boring to me. It was a lot of men mansplaining. And so I stood up and said, I think I need to get back. And this friend of mine who'd read the book said, you're pulling a vanish. I know it, but it's true. I used to make myself sit there. And I do think that's a lot of the reason that I would have one drink too many, because I wasn't listening to the voice that was telling me how I wanted my life to be. And listening to that voice, even during COVID time, is a great tool for anyone, whether or not you have alcohol in your life, to really say, what do I need today? Maybe I need to go be alone for a while. I need to go away from my family and have a walk. I need a bath. Whatever it is, because it does seem these days that there's an endless list of things to do and it's hard. And listening to yourself and saying, it might be only 2:00, but I'm done.
Right.
I used to say the kitchen is closed, and now I say the mom is closed.
Nice.
But that's one of my favorite things that I've learned. It really has changed everything for me.
I think it's beautiful. And like you said, it's practical. It's great advice for just living a happier life. It's just, it's full of wonderful.
Whether or not, you have alcohol in it. And so the book was really just about all these things. Look, Jardine, who wrote the book with me, is extremely glamorous and fabulous. And so she's really the glamour side. And I was more the, you can listen to your inner mom voice side. But the book has all these ways to sort of change your experience and meditate and do all sorts of tarot cards, reading, fun things you can do to have a fabulous life without having to drink.
And thank you for that, for sure. Okay, so I wanted to share, look at this gorgeous, make sure everyone at home, you read this and you read this. Maybe read this, then read this, depending on how you're feeling.
It's nautical book time.
Yeah. So Sarah, my colleague Sarah, I am guessing that we have questions from home. I have a couple more, but let's see what the folks at home want to ask.
Yes, but before we get to the questions, Christina, Tony had a message for you and said that he will be happy to help you in any way that he can.
I am going to hold him to that.
And I volunteer Tony to help Amanda, even though they haven't met yet.
Okay, good. He'll help both of us.
That sounds amazing.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, Carol would like to know, and this is for both of you, besides your own books and each other's books, please tell us some favorite books and authors.
Interesting. So many. The books that made me a writer, I would say, were these big 19th century novels. I wrote a dissertation in grad school about Virginia Woolf, so I love her. But Anna Karenina and Madame Bovary and Middlemarch were three sort of 19th century novels that ignited my passion for writing, I would say. And those, I still reread those. And then I read everything. Everything. I read lots of contemporary books because I really like to see what people are up to. I know a lot of writers who don't read that many contemporary books, but I actually really enjoy it. And I've done events with all these people, as I was saying earlier. So I've been reading all of their books to prepare for, I didn't have to read Amanda's because I'd already read it, but that was really fun. I loved The Splendid and the Vile, Eric Larson's book that came out earlier this year. There were many that were fantastic. So what about you, Amanda?
I just finished the most wonderful book that I've been telling everybody about, and it was on the Times bestseller list, so it's not like nobody knew about it, but it's called The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Have you read that yet, Christina?
I haven't yet, no.
You will love it. It reminds me of yours. It's two sisters, and they are both light-skinned Black, and it takes their lives, you go for multiple generations, because one of the sisters decides to pass as white. And she goes on to marry a white man, to have children who she tells that they are white. And then the other sister, and she has to basically cut off her entire family. And so it's the price she pays to live as a white person.
Right.
And the other sister remains with the family, but then her children, it's not giving too much away to say that the daughters will find each other. And it's just so beautifully done, these parallel storylines like you do, Christina. And there was one moment where one of the sisters turns and drops her wine glass, and it shatters to the floor with who she sees at the door. And I gasped because I thought, oh my God, it's the other woman's daughter. And it was. And it's so beautifully done. It's almost like Alice Munro-esque.
Yeah.
So I just love that book so much. I also read constantly, but that's the one that's really stood out for me this summer.
That is amazing. Well, I'll tell you one that I love that is not So I just read this, All My Puny Sorrows by Miriam Tours.
Heard of that?
It's so brilliant. I loved every, look, this is a typical page. I underline.
Nice.
I deface my books. I buy my books because I want to be able to write in them, and I love writing in books. I'm a big fan. So this one, just the language, the story, it's so heartbreaking and so beautiful, but also so funny. I want to reread it and see how she did it. And that's rare, that I want to reread a book that, that I've just read. So.
Oh, great. Thank you for those ideas. That's awesome. Sarah, is there another question?
Of course. Kat would like to know, how do you handle rejection of manuscripts?
Okay, wait, Sarah, do we not get to see you?
No, you don't.
Are you in your footy pajamas?
Not yet.
Okay.
I taught online, let me just tell you one quick aside, and one of my students said, I just love this online school because I can sit here smoking in my Snuggie and take your class. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
that's got to be a line in both of your books. Somehow work that in.
just smoking in my Snuggie. It was a University of Kentucky student.
Awesome.
Crazy. Good
Scary.
writer, though.
That's awesome. All right, you go first. Wait,
I forgot the question because that image just.
How do you deal with rejection of your manuscripts? How do you deal with rejection?
I mean, it is so hard. And I think one thing Christina and I have in common, not to speak for you, Christina, is that both of us just take it and get up and make it better. When I got the email or call from my editor saying she didn't think the Jet Setters was working, I cried for 2 days, and then I got to work and made it work. And I remember one of my good friends, Andrew Sean Greer, saying, I would have lain on a couch for a month. And I thought, I don't have a month. I gave it a day, and then I was back at it. I just love the challenge of writing fiction. So I have a novel that I could never figure out years ago, and it's a thriller called Cat and Vivian, and I worked on it, and finally my agent said, you've got to put this aside, and we just sold it to Audible because they're buying Audible books, and so, they come back around. I think rejection is just bad timing, and if you just keep your head down and work, you get to success. I really believe that.
Well, it is true that well, several things. Number one, you're really scrappy that way. I mean, to succeed in this business it's such a brutal business. And, the people who persevere, honestly, are the ones, like what you were just saying, dust yourself off and get up again. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people just let go at some point because it's demoralizing, it's tough. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, look, I've been around for a long time, so I don't get my novels don't get rejected exactly, but there are so many ways. I mean, meaning I have a publisher, I have an editor. We sort of don't get to that stage, I guess. But I know what that feels like. We've all been there, and at every turn, there's something you're not getting or doing or being or, no matter where you are in the process. And so there really is a way, if you're going to be in the creative world, that you have to develop a really tough hide and also celebrate the things, learn to celebrate the good things and let go of the things that don't happen or work. And that's always a tough one, to be appreciative of the things that are great and not questing. I think when we were talking earlier about being friends with writers, I think what happens sometimes is that people get bitter and start to feel like other people are, that there's a small pie and that other people have a piece of the pie and I'm not going to if they do. My philosophy, I had a mentor who was very much this way, and it really affected me. My philosophy is, if a friend of mine succeeds, it only widens the door for me to succeed. Like, I happen to be lucky enough to be friends with this person who's having a big success. Like, that's so inspiring and exciting. And I really do feel that way, that you know, that sort of good news begets good news, and that I want to celebrate my friends' successes and cheer them on, because I know that they know they've been down before and I've been down. We'll all have ups and downs. It's just the way the business works. And you have to have that philosophy. I believe you have to accept that it's going to be a hard. I was just mentoring, I was working with, I'm working in a program called Bookends at the Southampton University MFA program. And I'm working, they pair writers with, they pair published writers with aspiring novelists, whatever, emerging writers, they call them. And this woman I've been working with is looking for an agent, and she's gotten incredible feedback from famous people and her novel's very good. But I said, when she started making a list, I said, you're just assume you're going to go through a dozen names before you find someone who fits you. And maybe it will work right away, but don't
send it to Michelle.
That's true. Let's not presume that it's going to work right off the bat. And because that's the only way you can go into this, is just say, there are going to be rejections. I'm going to get through those. We're going to find the right place for this, for this book.
Well, thank you both for persevering. We sure appreciate your talents. And I'm glad the world knows about
it. Quick thing, because my mom is listening. I just want to say another piece of me being able to get up and dust myself off is that I talk to my mom every day, and my amazing husband and family. And if it feels like the world is ending, that my editor doesn't love my book, there are people I call and they think that I'm the greatest thing, my mom. And it feels okay. I can leave it in my office. So that's nice. Wonderful. Too. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, perspective is good. I think that's lovely. Hi, Mom. Hi, Amanda's mom.
Hi, Amanda's mom.
And my stepfather, Peter, is also fabulous.
Hello, Peter. Thank you for helping this gal, for sure. Okay, Sarah, who else has something to ask?
Greg has a question for Christina. He says, in writing The Exiles, you thoroughly researched the destruction of the Aboriginal culture and integration of British women convicts in Australia. As a non-UK Commonwealth citizen, how has the publication of your book been received there?
I actually am a UK citizen. I have dual citizenship because I was born in England and lived there for 9 years. So actually my relationship to this novel isn't quite as far-fetched as it seems. My characters are British and they go to Australia. And the novel is coming out in October in the UK and in Australia. So we'll see how that goes. I did an event the other night with the woman who wrote The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Her name is Heather Morris. That's a big, huge bestseller. And she's Australian. And she said she had a lot of trepidation approaching the book because she was afraid that what would I do with this story? And she then was very reassuring about it. But what I will tell you is that I did have a lot of trepidation about, in particular, writing about the history of the Aboriginal people in Australia, because there's a lot of conversation, rightfully so, about what right people have to tell stories that are not their own stories. I believe there's great validity in that. But when I was researching this book, I originally started out to write about the convict women only. And I went to Australia twice to do research. And when I was there, I just was struck by the sense that it would be irresponsible for me not to address the story of the Aboriginal people, because it happened at the same time. They were being pushed off their land at the same time that the convict women were being brought in and put in these female factories, these prisons for women. And so I was super careful. I did a ton of research. I worked with people who really knew the history, including a woman who's written 33 books on Australian history and is herself descended from convicts, and a man who is sort of the world expert on Aboriginal history. He consults with museums and movies and authors, and He is himself descended from a Tasmanian Aboriginal tribe. His name is Dr. Greg Lehman, and I was privileged to show him drafts and to work with him as I wrote the book. I was very lucky, and he's amazing. So I feel, and then I had another reader as well, who was what they call a sensitivity reader, sort of to make sure I had the facts right and everything else. So I did a lot of work to make sure that I was treading appropriately in this story, and also that I was being honest about the story. And so I hope, so far the feedback has been that that's working for people, and we'll find out when it's published overseas.
Great question, Craig. I think that was Craig who asked that. Sarah, is there another one?
Yes, Heidi has a question for Amanda, and she would like to ask how she thinks the Ward family would handle COVID. Is it inspiring them to travel again when they can, or are they never traveling again?
I'm guessing she means the Perkins family, which is the family in the jet setters on the cruise ship. So I'm going to answer for them. The Ward family is home right now, but the Perkins family, who is this, it's a 70-year-old woman named Charlotte Perkins who finds love on the cruise with her porter Patos, and then she has 3 adult children who come along, and they all end up in different places by the time they arrive in Barcelona. Okay, yes, I see Heidi's comment. Yes, the Perkins family. And I have to say, I think some of them would be back on a cruise ship as soon as they're sailing again. I did a very different kind of research and happen to be in touch with a lot of people who work on cruise ships and people who are super cruisers. There are a lot of people who've been on 40 cruises, and these people are ready. They are like, get these ships going, I'm on it. And I don't even think there'll be any slowing down for the cruise ship industry, honestly, as soon. I cannot believe how ready people are to hop back on the ships, because it's a little bit a magical break from reality. And I think that's what people love about cruises, and people really want that right now. So I think it would change for the different members of the Perkins family. I don't know that they would take a cruise right away, but I think they, like my family, will hopefully be together soon. We really miss each other, and that's been the worst part about the coronavirus for me, is not seeing my mom and my family. So hopefully we'll all be together soon, and so will the Perkins.
Amanda, I have a quick question for you about the cruise thing. I've been asked a few times to like be a writer on a cruise. Surely this is going to happen, or has happened to you.
I did get an email from Carnival wanting to do some collaboration before this whole COVID thing. So that's kind of nuts. Sorry I have a weird dry throat, so I've been muting myself and eating cough drops, if you've noticed. But anyway, yeah, look, once we get a vaccine, I'll be back on a cruise. I'm the kind of person who can just sort of not think about the details of the cruise, and people take care of my kids for me, so I'm in. But I want to go back to Hawaii. That's where I want to go to.
Next fall. Next fall, 2021, we hope.
Yes. How about you guys? Where do you want to travel next?
What about you, Dawn?
Grand Cayman for me. The island is closed, at least till October 1st, so it'll be a while. But my husband and I snorkel there. We just snorkel all day and eat fresh lobster, Caribbean lobster, and totally veg and read books under a cabana.
That sounds perfect. Well, we had a whole fabulous Italian vacation planned for, it was our 30th anniversary this year. And so we were going to go to Italy, to Lake Como, and all of that got scuttled. So maybe another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will get through this. And speaking of through, I think we're through because the time has gone so quickly. Again, oh my gosh, thank you so very, very much. We're so grateful for both of you. We're so proud of you. You have friends and fans here in Adams County, Pennsylvania, and of course all over the world. I do want to thank again the attendees. Your willingness to buy a ticket tonight helps us with our most urgent needs here for the 6 libraries in Adams County. Come visit when you can. We're open. And the only thing we don't have going on right now are in-person programming and meeting space. We're not able to share meeting space, but come see us else for everything else. And a special shout out again to family and all over the world supporting the three of us right now. Love you, Aaron and Dad. And again, my fabulous committee, Heidi, Karen, Pat, Sharon, Vicky, who made all the ticket sales happen, and Sarah and Tom, my colleagues here. I have the blessing of many colleagues who are fabulous here. So very, very grateful. So Christina and Amanda, we look forward to reading your next books, whatever they are, for the years to come. And thank you for
the Exiles and the Jet Setters.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, best wishes to you and your family and extended family. And again, we just look forward to reading what's next.
Thank you, Dawn. Thanks. It's been great. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank you.